Israel is just kind of passing the buck to the United States after getting the United States involved in the war. They don't have air defenses right now. Like nobody does. The United States doesn't. Israel, who gets all of their stuff from the United States, doesn't. Ukraine doesn't because it gets them all from the United States as well. The European allies don't. Japan doesn't. South Korea doesn't. Nobody has air defense missiles right now because they've all been used up trying to protect Ukraine and Israel over the past, few years of war in Ukraine's case, and a few months in Israel's case. But they're pressuring Washington to continue the war, but they've got they have no strategic usefulness or ideas for helping the United States win the war.
Well, and according to whatever, Smotrich, according to him,
yeah,
Israel has no interest in this conflict.
Right. They think that the goy cattle should fight their wars for them.
Right.
I mean, that's his words, not mine, right? Let's see. The Ansar Allah in Yemen have blockaded the Red Sea against Saudi shipping, closing the Saudis' alternate oil export route, and which is compounding the global economic crisis. And Iran has escalation dominance at every level. Its economy is damaged, but it holds all the cards strategically, and it will certainly drive a hard bargain.
I think one thing that's hard for people in this country to really accept is that an economy can be damaged and even suffering immensely, and it still not be enough for people who are fighting.
Oh, I know.
Like people who are fighting something which is more than like an existential fight, because when your interests, when your concerns, when the things which you hold most dear are more than economy, I think we just can't imagine that.
Iran has their finger on the "Make American Treats More Expensive" button, and they just keep pressing it. And the United States is like, God, we have to end this war with Iran. But yeah, that's Iran's had their leaders blown up, their sons and daughters massacred indiscriminately, their oil industry severely damaged, their cities burned, and are still in the fight. And Trump and Americans, like conservative Americans specifically, the ones that still back Trump, don't understand that.
Yeah. They're like, how could they possibly be still in the fight? If we're paying higher gas, they must be having to pay more for stuff too. That's unacceptable for anybody who's not us, because we're rich.
It's like the whole ridiculous idea of turning the Russian people against Putin by blowing up Wildberries warehouses.
Yeah,
their Wildberries are is one of the many online shipping retailers in Russia, but this probably the closest analog would be Amazon. Anyway, so there is something that might provide some kind of out for Trump that is in developing right now, and that is a deal is reportedly close to being reached in the Strait of Hormuz between Oman and Iran. Iran has announced that it's reached an agreement with Oman on shipping routes through the Strait of Hormuz, saying that the geographical coordinates are in the final stages. And Iran warned that the deal alone would not guarantee safe navigation, blaming ongoing insecurity on the United States naval blockade. So this deal here between Oman and Iran could possibly be an out for the United States. They could say, once the deal is finished, that Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz and pretend like that's a win, and then move on to other things, lift the blockade on Iran, and then possibly try to weasel their way into pretending like they won on nuclear weapons, which Iran has no intention of developing, or had no intention of developing. Maybe they do now.
Yeah.
In fact, I would if I were Iran. But I mean, I think Iran has shown that the control of the Strait of Hormuz is more devastating than nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I mean,
because they can actually deploy that.
Yeah, this is their nuclear option.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see. One of the main reasons why the United States has no other options militarily is because the missile stockpiles are severely depleted. I know we've talked about this before, but I've got some data now I think it's worth going over. The US has dramatically depleted its stockpiles of long range precision missiles, mostly what we've been talking about as air defense missiles. And this is its uh, offensive weapons like ATACMs and PRSMs and all the other offensive weapons like Tomahawks and whatever else. So, Army Tactical Missile Systems, ATACMs, and Precision Strike Missiles, PRSMs. The U.S. has used virtually all of its global stockpile of these accurate surface-to-surface missiles. Basically, the Army's capacities to inflict long-range damage on the enemy is non-existent right now. Tomahawk cruise missiles, which are generally launched from sea, have the United States has expanded about half of its global supply, and essentially what this does is it derails the United States' strategy for deterrence. The United States' doctrine for global deterrence against China, against Russia, is based on the idea that they need these missiles in order to be able to respond to or to do first strikes against, peer enemies. And they've essentially showed that they can plaster third-rate power with them for months and have them not work, on top of the fact that they don't have enough. I think that, sure, it could limit our ability to deter Russia or China, but I think that China could send 1 million drones against a carrier group in the South China Sea and completely just devastate it, and there's nothing the United States could do about it. So I don't think they're really concerned about that at all. Luckily, China is not as stupid as the United States is, and they're playing a long game where they win by just not collapsing as fast as the the West is. Defensive weapons, like as we mentioned a million times on the show, are also affected. Like Patriot interceptors are more than 65% expended. THAAD ballistic missile interceptors, about 38% expended globally, not just in the region. That's for everywhere where the United States has assets that could possibly be hit. But as far as Trump is concerned, he has said that we have far more munitions than anyone in the world and far more than we need. But no one agrees with him there. Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell has said that the U.S. has everything it needs to execute at the time and place of the president's choosing and possesses a deep arsenal. But analysts pretty much across the board agree that the production of certain munitions is at record levels and it's still not going to be enough. The PRSM stockpile was already low, and they don't produce enough to be able to replace them.
I feel like we should probably just regularly, we have to hammer it into our heads that we don't have enough weapons. Because I think that most people I think that they know that. I think it's really hard to actually conceptualize what this means materially. But what it means is that the fighting cannot happen.
Okay, so traveling a little bit over across the Middle East to another quagmire where losers are losing. Let's talk about Israel and southern Lebanon. There's been significant military difficulties for Israel in southern Lebanon during their massive ground operations. Despite deploying what should be sufficient forces, substantial forces which should be sufficient for sure. Let's see. This is from the Middle East Monitor, where they're citing the Israeli media reporting that the United States, Israel in the region, has deployed 50,000 troops in southern Lebanon, yet have failed to capture a single village. There's a major gap between the scale of commitment and the tangible results on the ground. They've suffered heavy casualties and equipment losses. Now, heavy casualties for the Israeli military, anyway. There are reports that there are around 1,000 Israeli military casualties. That doesn't mean they're all dead. A lot of those have been wounded, and I don't know exactly what the deaths are. I don't think that's listed.
But what they have
But
done,
they
they have disgraced several statues of our Holy Mother.
Yep, of the Virgin Mary. They've burned churches. They've looted. They've ethnically cleansed villages of people that have been there for 1,000 years. And they've begun spraying glyphosate on crops in Lebanon and in Syria to depopulate those areas that they want to move settlers
So
into.
they've done
Which, of course,
they've done everything they
their
know how
settlers
to
are going to
do.
get cancer from those later.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done everything that the IDF is good at, but they still can't beat them. We tried shooting women. We tried blowing up children. We tried defacing their religious artifacts. We tried poisoning their crops and burning down their olive trees. Yet for some reason, we can't destroy their military.
Well, it's probably because America is not helping enough.
Yeah, definitely. No, but so yeah, Hezbollah claims, and there are several other sources that verify this, but of course they're all pro-Hezbollah sources, so you'll have to take that with a grain of salt, that they've destroyed 42 Merkava tanks. They've at least damaged twice that many. I don't know how many of those have actually been destroyed, but there's plenty of footage of Merkava tanks being pretty severely hit by drones and shoulder-held rockets and stuff like that. So we can say that the Israelis in southern Lebanon are facing an attritional war that is pretty high in both human life and high-value military equipment. This article doesn't mention that the drones in southern Lebanon have been crossing over into Israel and taking out Iron Dome and David Sling batteries as well, which are immensely costly, like hundreds of millions of dollars per each one of these radars. Yeah. And then, something similar for each one of the missile batteries. And the loss of these main battle tanks suggests that that Hezbollah has a very sophisticated anti-armor tactics and weaponry. So Israel's not doing well. They've had soldiers that are mutinying. Of course, the direct cause of the mutiny isn't necessarily that they don't want to fight anymore, but I think that general morale in the Israeli military is very low. So it would necessarily lead to seemingly unrelated things being the straw that breaks the camel's back. There's a mutiny at a base where like hundreds of soldiers deserted. There's a rash of suicides of IDF reservists. And so anyway, things are looking bad in Israel. There's a possibly Netanyahu looks like he's going to lose the election. The society itself seems to be fracturing at the seams. And I'll refer you back to the several episodes that we've done where we discuss all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that it's even becoming recognized more and more that like the Israelis are losing an existential fight that they started. And, good.
Yeah, I mean, so Israel there's a highly unusual public feud that is playing out between Israel Katz, who's the defense minister, and the IDF chief, Eyal Zamir, just clashing over security doctrines, political appointments, and who dictates the policy in the West Bank. And that's happening in public. There's an institutional breakdown where basically the Israeli military isn't functioning the way that it's supposed to, and there's like fractures within the command structure. There's a conscription crisis, and the social contracts being called into question. There's a big fight over the equality of the burden of defense, supposedly between the Haredi Jews and the other Jews, the Orthodox Jews and the not as Orthodox Jews, which is causing the coalition that is in power right now to fracture. There's like I said, massive electoral anxiety where 70% of Israelis are concerned with the way things are going and not happy. So Netanyahu is unlikely to be reelected. And if he is not reelected, he is likely to go to prison. There's strategic fatigue. Like Israel prides itself on being like a super Sparta nation. And they are showing that they can't actually maintain that. They need global connectedness. They rely on everyone else for the existence of their society, and their global pariah now, and it's facing pressure on its from all of the neighbors that it keeps attacking. And the international community, which is, as you know, the international community is the global north that's connected into the system of markets that's based around the United States and the European
Well,
Union,
and Australia.
um, and Australia, right? They're pressuring Israel to stop doing genocides and stuff like that. So yeah, Israel's under pretty severe pressure right now, and we go into detail with some of this stuff, as I mentioned right before I started talking about it. We go into a lot more detail on other episodes, so you can scroll back and find those if you want. But let's hop on over to out of West Asia to East Asia and talk about China and how China is building full-size models of U.S. warships and aircraft in order to be able to test its missiles. They've constructed an extensive array of full-size replicas of U.S. and Taiwanese military assets and government buildings in desert regions in an unprecedented training program designed to hone its long-range missile capabilities and to practice ground assaults and drone warfare. So the models that the Chinese have created include bases, they include replicas of U.S. Arleigh Burke class destroyers, mock-ups of the U.S. Yokosuka Naval Base in Japan, a model of Taiwan's Suao Naval Base. Satellite imagery shows that these models have been struck and damaged by live fire missile tests. They've built models of fighter jets and air bases, including mock-ups of Taiwan's Taichung Air Base used for weapons testing and bombing practice. And they've built to scale replicas of Taiwan's presidential offices, foreign ministry, and other key government buildings. And they've are apparently testing a wide array of weapons, including the YJ-21 and YJ-17 hypersonic anti-ship missiles, the DF-27 ballistic missile with an 8,000-kilometer range. And obviously this is to show the rest of the world that China is not to be trifled with.
Just in case there was any confusion.
Yeah, I mean, because the United States has projected its goal to engage in a military conflict with China in the upcoming years. So China just wants to let everybody know that we've got better missiles than you, and we've been practicing on your shit. So, yeah.
We also haven't been losing a war for the last couple of years.
Right.
Yeah.
China has moved beyond generic military exercise to conduct detailed scenario-specific training for an invasion of Taiwan. All right, let's move on over to Ukraine for the next 3/4 of the episode. We've got a lot here.
Just like always.
Yep. So on August 1st of this year, a bomb hidden inside a gift box exploded outside the Balzi Rossi Italian restaurant in central Moscow. An unidentified woman acting as an unwitting courier was stopped at the entrance by a security guard before the bomb was detonated remotely. So it's not too hard to tell who did this. Ukraine has used unwitting couriers for bombs, and that the Operation Spider's Web used unwitting truck drivers to deliver the drones near the Russian air bases, who were then killed by a third party or a second party. Anyway, killed by someone else, like a civilian truck driver who was just delivering something that they thought was a cargo to whatever place, and they were killed by the Israeli. Same, whatever, Ukrainian, Israel, whatever, same thing.
Increasingly, actually.